And good day. Thank you for joining us. I am Tamara Scott, and you are listening or watching Tamara Scott Live with Truth for Our Time. You may be watching live at 10 a.m. Wednesday mornings at webcast1live.com, 10 a.m. Wednesday morning, webcast1, one is spelled out, live.com, or you may be watching on the archives at the Tamara Scott Live channel on YouTube, Tamara Scott Live channel on YouTube. My thanks to Ryan Northfield, our producer, for accomplishing feats far beyond my technical prowess, and he always manages to do it, and no matter what we ask, so I thank him for that. If you're watching today, I have to admit, this is not live. We're pre-taping several conferences happening this month on speaking tour, and so you are getting a pre-taped show, but the discussion that we're going to be having, I think, will be just as timely, other than maybe some announcements that I might make. I can't give you an update on the anti-bullying bill in Iowa. Hopefully it still has not passed because it's an anti-parent bill that says schools can bypass parents and not tell them if their child is either harmed or the bully. They can totally bypass you. They can refer students, not just public school students, but any student, homeschool or otherwise, to a law enforcement agency, to a nonprofit such as a Planned Parenthood, without notifying those parents if they don't believe that you will respond appropriately. And who determines what is your appropriate response? When has government ever been better in a situation in the family than the natural or the parents? So those are just two of the situations, the concerns. Otherwise, it says that they can go through your child's electronic devices, their phones. You know, they're minors, but they still have a Fourth Amendment right. While it's at risk for all of us, we admit it, it's being trampled on. They still have a Fourth Amendment right to privacy without a warrant for search and seizure. And then beyond that, it says at schools, it invites the teachers to go onto social media and monitor the students. They're going to stalk the students. First off, most teachers and superintendents do not want this added burden of responsibility. But secondly, it's just not a good idea. Your students deserve some freedom and some liberty. And also, it gives them authority. It says this, outside school activity, off school premises. So it expands and increases the role of the authority of the school. To do that, you have to limit or decrease that authority elsewhere, which would be parents. This is just a bad bill all the way around. Besides, it's written poorly. I think it's the second page of the bill. The last line of the first paragraph says, and this paragraph will be construed as intended. It's as vaguely as that. It's a lawsuit waiting to happen. It's just who will be trampled in the process while that takes place. And the other thing with these lawsuits, when they write bad bills, and I do believe they do it purposely, is that some of them, not all of them, we have some great legislators there, some of them, that when you have an activist judge then decides policy and forces something on a people that wouldn't otherwise be accepted. That's the problem with letting these bills be arbitrated and interpreted through the courts. It forces on a public what should otherwise be done through the legislative process. So the anti-bullying bill, I hope it has not passed. I pray it has not passed. 515-8281-3221 is the number for your state house switchboard. You may always call them at home, because what they do at the State House greatly affects what happens in your house. So call them at home. Be bright, be brief, be gone. But do let them know your opinion on this. All right, joining me today, a couple of men I'm very, very pleased and honored to have, and it's taken quite a feat to be able to do this. Kyle Olson is joining us from Education Action Group, EAG News. If you want to find them on Twitter, if you want to find them on Facebook, follow them on many of their articles online. Kyle Olson is with Education Action Group, and then Representative Bob McDermott from Hawaii, state representative from Hawaii. And it is like 6:15 in the morning there right now. So we thank him for joining us, 6:35. So we thank him for joining us so early. Let's start out, Kyle Olson. Thank you for one, the work that you do with the Education Action Group.
Happy to. Thanks for having me.
The article that I came across, I was studying it. The searches I have to do are just pathetic because of a conference we have here in Iowa, the governor's LGBTQ conference. Started out as an anti-bullying conference, but it is now nothing more than a blatant promotion and propagation of and recruitment of homosexual behavior upon our 8th grade, sometimes 7th grade students to 12th grade students. In that conference, one of the speakers explained to our students lotions or oils you could buy that would cover the taste of, excuse me, if you've got folks listening, if you've got kids listening, you may want to distract them, shut off the computer and watch this on an archive later. But it would teach these kids how to have oral-to-anal sex. And my first thought was, one, this is just so incredibly dangerous. Feces, etc., just the health risks alone. So that's one of the searches I was doing. But I came across Lawmaker says sex ed program geared for 11-year-olds redefines the anus as a genital and promotes risky behavior. Thank you so much, eagnews.org, for bringing this out. How did you come across this, Kyle?
Well, what we're seeing, and the representative can talk to this specifically about Hawaii, but what we're seeing is schools are shifting away from an abstinence-based sex ed curriculum and towards what they call a comprehensive curriculum, where they're getting into gender identity and relationships and all of these sorts of things. And so the problem is that the progressives that run the government education system are basically, implementing their personal values, or what they would consider values, on the curriculum. And so what we've been trying to do on our site is cover these sorts of stories. And so when we saw Representative McDermott's story, it's one of the most shocking examples in the country of how progressives are doing this. And what I personally found even more disturbing about that situation is, as Representative McDermott tried to look into it and was trying to get the lessons and the curriculum and those sorts of things, the bureaucrats would not share them, which, when I read that and when I saw that, I thought, this is all you need to know. Here is an elected official who is trying to do due diligence, who is trying to look out for taxpayers and parents and look into what the bureaucracy is doing, and they just thumb their noses at him, and they won't even share it. And that, it says to me that the progressives know exactly what they're doing. And they're trying to pull a fast one on parents because they know parents will be upset.
Right. Right. If they really truly exposed what they were teaching, there would be an outcry. But they try to do this until it's already set. They cover it until it's set and embedded in policy. Representative Bob McDermott is joining us from Hawaii. We thank you so much for the early morning there with us, 6:15, 6:30 at your time. You've been married 25 years, father of 8 children. You hold an MBA degree from how do I pronounce that? Is it Chaminade University?
Yeah, Chaminade. Yeah.
And you're currently an executive in Honolulu, a nonprofit organization, and you are a Marine who served in the Gulf War. Let me thank you so much for your service there. You are now are you in your 3rd term in the Hawaii State House?
Right. Well, actually, I served 10 years in the 1990s to 2002, and I was out of office for several years, and I got back in by, I guess, God's good fortune. It was unexpected. Somebody asked me to run, somebody left. But what you're saying on these programs is absolutely true. In fact, they're brought in under the guise of STD and pregnancy prevention. And their MO, Planned Parenthood is the one who pushes these. I mean, let's be frank. Their MO around the country is the same. They come in and say you have an unacceptable rate of teen pregnancy and STDs, and we need to implement these programs. Well, these programs inculcate the young children with the concept of anal sex, transgenderism, homosexuality, and they're all presented as healthy, wholesome, moral equivalents of male-female reproduction. And this is at 1st grade and kindergarten. And it's kind of like the frog in a hot kettle of water, like you said, but before you know it, you're boiling alive.
Absolutely. And I love the fact that you served in the 90s. Now I know why you were so brave. I was when I came across a state representative who was brave enough to call this out publicly. One, I knew I liked you, but now I understand why. We're the Marine in you, but the fact that you had served before, you're not some rookie, and you knew you could challenge. But even though you're challenging, Kyle says they're not being upfront with you. They're not giving you information.
Right now, we're suing the University of Hawaii. I've sued them because the sex survey they give to 11-year-olds they won't give me the survey instrument, the questions they ask. Now, we have a pretty good idea why they won't give us the survey, because they're asking 11-year-olds, I believe, how often have you had anal sex? Did you use lubricants? And that sort of stuff. And by the way, when they give them the survey, they give them a $20 gift card. And they say, how'd you like the program? Here's $20, 11-year-old. Oh, it was great. Can I have another? And so it just corrupt all the way around. But parents are outraged when they are told the particulars. There is a distinction we have to make here. This is not the sex ed program I had in the 1970s. This is a sexuality education program, as you alluded to. It doesn't teach anything about reproduction. The miracle of life is totally omitted. In fact, we're now reviewing all the middle school programs, and some of the stuff we're finding is laughable. There's a chart of the human anatomy, and they list the anus as a reproductive organ. I mean, this is laughable. And this is what they're teaching the young children. And we're going to come out with another report covering all these programs currently in use in a couple weeks.
Well, to every parent out there who's listening, I apologize again, but we need to be talking about this one because most of you don't understand it's really happening. And it's so bizarre when you hear it. You think we're the weirdos and we're making it up. But this is what's happening in your public schools. It is a movement. It is an agenda. And you need to be aware of it. As Bob said, the sex ed of the 70s is no longer what we have. And what we used to call it, well, first off, let's just go back. And I've got pulled up 1940 to 1999 non-marital childbearing United States. I think I don't even have to look at the statistics. But in the 40s, we had less than, per births per 1,000 unmarried women, less than 10 births per 1,000 unmarried women in the 40s. In the 50s, we see those numbers going a little higher, but not bad. But let's just jump to where we are in 1999. This isn't even up to date, 1999. Up to 70 per 1,000 number of births to unmarried mothers. So the sex ed programs are not helping. When SECUS came in, SECUS is what? The Sexual Institute for Education for the United States. Much of this comes from Kinsey. Are both of you familiar with Alfred Kinsey and his work?
Oh, he's a pervert.
And Kyle, are you familiar with his work as well?
Yes.
It astounds me that is it University of Indiana has the Kinsey Institute?
Yes.
That
believe it.
So we're pre-taping this, but I'll be at a conference this weekend speaking, and Dr. Judith Reisman is one of the speakers, and of course she uncovered Alfred Kinsey, who is, the reason I'm bringing him up to those of you who are listening, he's responsible for a lot of what your kids are getting. What we used to call sex ed, which really shouldn't even be in the public schools still, is now nothing more than
a sexuality behavior program.
Exactly.
This is not the biology-based health course that children got to learn how the organs function in the body and what makes a male and female different and the miracle of life through human reproduction. All that's omitted. And that is the problem, because they say sex ed, so when they attack us, the people think we're fuddy-duddies. But that's why I am so clear when I tell them what they're teaching. I say, hey, they're teaching your kids about anal sex among 11-year-olds. And then they'll come back to me and say, well, they're doing it anyway. And I said, well, unless there's an outbreak of anal sex among 11-year-olds I'm unaware of, I don't think they are. But aside from that, why would we teach a behavior that is misogynist in nature and objectifies women? You see, that really bothers the lefties because that's what it is. It's an objective misogynist behavior. So we remove soda machines because we tell the kids that they're unhealthy on campus. Yet we're introducing these unhealthy behaviors.
That's a great point. We are so concerned about having them in the right tennis shoes, having them in the right sports program, and yet we're letting absolute poison come into their minds. And in the LGBTQ conference that I pointed out, Sam Killerman was one of the speakers. His website talks about him using humor as a social lubricant, which tells you just a little bit about the innuendo of this gentleman. But a student asked, gay, porn, or straight? And he said gay is much better. Listen to what he's telling our kids. Pornography. He's promoting pornography. Again, these are 8 to 12th graders. And we now know that pornography, when viewed by young people, changes the brain. It changes.
Yes, that's Judith Reisman's research. She's great, and you're going to spend some time with her. I don't mean to hog it. I'm sorry.
No, go. Absolutely. And we've got 3 on this, and I'm thrilled to have the conversation. So chime in, either one of you, when you see a point.
Well, I guess I would just say, the problem with a lot of this, especially with what the representative's talking about, is we're talking about statutory rape. I mean, the age of consent in most states is either 16 or 18. And so when you're promoting this sort of behavior between 11-year-olds, I mean, not only is it unhealthy and it's destructive behavior, but for a lot of these states, it's illegal. Right. And so you have government school employees and trainers and those sorts of people promoting this sort of behavior that at the end of the day is illegal. And there was a 20 years, there was a sexuality conference that went on in the state of Oregon that pushed these, same sorts of things. It went on for 20 years, funded by and organized by the state. Students as young as 11 years old attended, and students and administrators and teachers all went to this. And it wasn't until video and audio leaked out that got into these very graphic things that were being described to students and promoted to students. This is not just, well, here's how you protect yourself, but they're actually promoting this sort of behavior. And it wasn't until all of that came out that the conference was actually shut down. But that's a victory there. But then parents need to be vigilant because, of course, what will happen is it will shut down there, and that it will pop up somewhere else with a different name, with different buzzwords. But parents have got to be vigilant because this is happening everywhere.
So, Representative McDermott, and Kyle, you're absolutely correct, and I think it popped up in Iowa. They say that Iowa's conference is one of the largest in the nation, 1,000 students, 8th grade through 12th grade, coming to what is deemed the governor's LGBTQ conference. And it is nothing more than promotion of, one of the speakers had a condom dress. Kids were supposed to peel the condoms off. She told them to use them often. They even discuss, gentlemen, BDSM kits, bondage, dominance, sadism, masochism. These are 8th grade to 12th graders. This is very dangerous stuff.
Oh, it's laughably bad. And one of the things they do not do, they bring the programs under the guise of STD prevention and teen pregnancy. But one of the things they don't do is when they introduce these anomalous behaviors, aside from male-female reproduction, they omit the risks. So Right. They teach 11-year-old kids about anal sex, and the risks are 1,800% greater to catch HIV, and they omit it. In fact, when we started our crusade, on the FDA website, the Surgeon General, they still had it up from C. Everett Koop, said condoms provide some protection, but anal sex is simply too dangerous to practice. It was on the website. We knew it was going to go away because once we started, so we took a screenshot of it and we saved the website page. We were on Tony Perkins' radio show and Brian Fisher. And you know what? A month later, it disappeared from the FDA website. It's gone. But the Surgeon General said it's too dangerous to practice. And so they omit the elevated risk. They don't tell the girls the risk. The girls are the victims here. They don't tell the girls the risk of HPV. They say there's an epidemic of it. Yeah, there is, because condoms are virtually useless in protecting a young girl against HPV. Her cervix is immature up till about age 19. And they don't tell them that they can still get chlamydia. And by the way, chlamydia is often undetected. It can leave you infertile, even if your partner has a condom. So the girls are being victimized in all this. And And Dr. Joe McElhaney out of Texas, you should have him on your program. He's an OBGYN, quite a guy. He started researching this and started a medical institute because he did in vitro. And fully 1/3 of his patients who came in to see him were young girls, 24 years old, who were infertile because they had contracted chlamydia and it burned through their fallopian tubes, and now they can't get pregnant. And that's heartbreaking. But Planned Parenthood doesn't want to discourage sexual activity. In fact, going back to what you said earlier, Planned Parenthood programs actually encourage sexual activity.
Right.
What we want to delay because every economic indicator, educational indicator, relationship indicator says that if you have fewer partners, you are going to do better. But Planned Parenthood wants the girls to have as many partners as they want and empower them, and boys too, of course, and just have sex as often as you want and just have a condom and no worries. But that's not true.
And see, you bring up Planned Parenthood. This is big business for Planned Parenthood,
right,
because not only are they in the schools, being retained by the schools to teach this sort of behavior, but then they get the girls on the next step because they need an abortion or they think they need an abortion. And so then Planned Parenthood is right there to take that business. We did an interview with a former abortion clinic leader in Texas, and she said they had a goal of 7 abortions per girl by the time they left high school. That was their goal.
Per girl.
So, per girl. I mean, it's shocking. And so when you see that Planned Parenthood has anything to do with your sex ed curriculum, that should be immediate alarm bells, because what they're doing is they're setting the girls up to then try and use their services down the road. And it's despicable what's going on. And nothing will change until parents stand up, do the digging that Representative McDermott is doing, do the suing if that's what you've got to do. There are organizations that will help you do that. But that's the sort of work that parents need to do, because, like I said earlier, these school administrators know exactly what they're doing. And the reason that they're so secretive is because they know that parents will be outraged. And so it's critical that parents do that work.
We have to take a break right now for our sponsors. I am very thankful to have Crave, Christians for America, Crave, Christians reviving American values every day. Their support, we appreciate them coming alongside Webcast One Live Studios, making it possible for us to use the studios each time we do the show here. And Ryan Northfield, my producer, will come back right after these messages. Stay tuned.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner of Service Legends, and my position is Chief Talent Officer.
I'm Nicholas Wonderscheid.
I am Bernie Hobbs.
And I'm the Service Manager.
Marketing Director and Client Relations Manager.
Everything that we do is about ensuring that we exceed your expectations.
Our clients are important to us. 100% satisfaction.
We're not just focused on heating and cooling. That's the easiest part of our job, actually, is fixing furnaces and air conditioners.
Everyone that we come in touch with, we want to improve lives.
Bottom line is, we've got our installation guarantees, 25% energy savings guarantee, comfort guarantee, temperature selection guarantee, property protection guarantee.
100% satisfaction guaranteed, fixed rate or it's free.
All of those guarantees are backed up with a 100% money-back guarantee to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that you get what you're after.
Just fixing the problem today. If they have another problem 5 days down the road, it's still fixed rate or it's free.
We use what's called straightforward pricing. Our technicians are going to give you an exact to-the-penny price on what it's going to take before they move forward with any repair. That way you know what to expect.
It's the same price every day.
No surprises.
If you get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you come home, you realize that, oh, my furnace is broken. Now you need to call somebody out that night. You shouldn't have to pay more for that.
We're guaranteeing service 24/7.
We run afternoons, evenings, nights, weekends. We're staffed to work that.
Phone rings at 3 in the morning. You'll get one of our representatives answering the phone every time.
We're not sending you out to Timbuktu in some call center. It's our Service Legend team members, our mission control team.
I'll take a call anytime.
And then they answer the phones the same way during the day as they do at night.
It's a great day at your service company. How can we make you smile?
That's the only way to provide true 24-hour service.
When you're able to let somebody actually live in their home safely when they weren't able to do that before, where they don't have to stay up at night and worry about, is the heat going to come back on? Are we going to freeze the pipes? Is the baby in the room next door going to be sick because they got too cold? When you're able to help somebody overcome challenges like that, that's impacting a life. That makes a difference. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love the team. I love the people that I work with.
We have fun, but we work hard.
I call them my ambassadors of legendary service. If you could just envision what that is, that's who we're sending to your home.
They literally will call in, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to your manager. And I get on the phone, they're like, that technician that was at my house was the greatest technician ever. That's cool to me.
We want to brighten people's days.
Every person that we have going into the house has gone through an extensive background check.
Drug testing, we have a very thorough interview process that 1 out of 140 people make it through.
If we promise you something, that's what you're going to get, no matter what.
We're here when you need us to protect the safety and comfort of your family.
If you're not happy, we're gonna make it right.
If we're willing to put 100% money back guarantee on what we do, what type of work do you think we do?
Give us a call. We're there for you 24/7, 365 days a year.
Enough said.
And I am Tamara Scott. Thank you so much for staying tuned with us. I have the privilege and the honor of having two special guests today. Kyle Olson is with Education Action Group, eagnews.org, and Representative Bob McDermott is from the beautiful state of Hawaii, and he's joining us as well. We were talking about Planned Parenthood curriculum being in the schools. While we were on break, I quickly just did a little search there for Planned Parenthood, and do understand that a lot of the curriculum that you have under the guise of sex ed, it is teaching sex. Don't think anything about it. It is not reproduction anymore. We'll come back to that in a minute. But it is nothing more than sex ed and graphic in every detail, and not what you would consider the sex ed taught, like Bob said, in the 70s. But here, during the fiscal year 2013-14, Planned Parenthood received more than $528 million in taxpayer funding, more than $1.4 million per day in the form of government grants, contracts, and Medicaid reimbursements. Taxpayer funding accounts for 41% of Planned Parenthood's overall revenue. Planned Parenthood reported more than $127 million in excess revenue and more than $1.4 billion in net assets. And yet you, the taxpayer, are being tapped to pay in to this huge money-making industry that's titled a nonprofit and comes back and poisons your children in the public education system. Representative McDermott, you have been trying to get information. You're now suing. But if you as a representative, let me just say an experienced, seasoned representative, cannot get information from your boards, from your government groups, what can the average parent do?
Parents actually have more power than elected officials, because elected officials fear parents, particularly if there's a group of them. So if you have 20 or 30 parents in a particular area, you can contact your state legislator and ask for a meeting, and go to that meeting armed with the facts that they omit the elevated risks, the facts that they conflate the three prime behaviors. They say, if you're going to have, every program does this, if you're going to have sex, oral, anal, or vaginal, wear a condom because it reduces the risk. Well, these three behaviors are remarkably different and have remarkably different risk tolerances and risk outcomes. But they brainwash the kids because they want to conflate these behaviors as early as 11 years old and brainwash the kids to teach them. So a guy like me, as old as I am, when someone talks about anal sex, yikes, icky, sticky, I don't want to hear about that. But they want the young kids to be conditioned to accept it and affirm it. And that is what's going on. So although people get uncomfortable when I speak frankly about what it is, it's quite humorous, actually, to watch the newscaster struggle to say the words anal sex. But that's what they're teaching the kids. And so if you say anomalous behaviors, well, the bus driver or the clerk at the drugstore is not going to be quite sure what you mean. But if you say they're teaching your little kids about anal sex, the finer points, by the way, they get outraged.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just be very graphic here. In the same conference, one of the students supposedly asked about anal sex for lesbians, and they handed right back the answer. the question was, is it painful? And the answer was, it depends on the size of the device you strap on. These are what they're teaching our kids, 8th grade through 12th grade. And I say it because I don't think you'll believe it any other way. And
that's very funny. In fact, when we did Pono Choices originally came out with this, and I said anal sex is dangerous, one of the smart aleck reporters said, well, what about anal sex for women? I said, well, that must be in Pono Choices too, because I haven't seen that in this version, so I can't comment.
Right. And Kyle, I don't want to leave you out of the conversation. Anything to add?
Sure. Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's shocking, and you've got to, I mean, like you said, it makes everyone uncomfortable to use this sort of language, because I think, a lot of conservatives are modest when it comes to these sort of things. But you've got to use that sort of language to jar people and to wake them up to realize, if you just say abnormal behavior, well, they don't really know what you're talking about, or they may just, not be moved by that. But you've got to use this sort of language. I mean, for example, we were covering the Clark County, which is Las Vegas, 5th largest school district in the country. Is looking at moving away from an abstinence-based to a comprehensive sexuality education program. And what parents and the parents there latched onto was that one of the lessons would be masturbation for 5-year-olds, for kindergartners. And they just, they were floored by this. But that's the sort of content that is in this comprehensive these comprehensive lessons. And so, like I said, it's unfortunate. We've got to, be graphic in the descriptions, but that's the only way to really get parents to understand this is what schools want to teach your children.
In fact, they when you talk about, we just thwarted them bringing it into kindergarten and 1st grade, barely. It just didn't move. It went pretty far in committee. But the way they brainwash the little ones is they introduce stories of homosexual penguins, transgender, Bailey the boy with 10,000 dresses. That's for 2nd graders. These children, and Judith Reisman has aptly pointed out, their brains cannot process this material. They are not naturally curious. And when you introduce them to these bizarre behaviors and you tell them that sex is their responsibility, and when they're ready, they decide, not mom or dad or anyone else. It's up to them to choose, and anal sex is a healthy, wholesome, moral equivalent of male-female reproduction. You are absolutely setting them to be victims, because in our programs, shockingly, there's no predator protection module. So weird Uncle Willie comes down the hall, he molests the child. Well, Uncle Willie had anal sex with me. Well, that's good. That's healthy, wholesome. And it's my responsibility as an 11-year-old, because I'm told that it's my responsibility. And what we did wasn't wrong. And after all, love is love.
And I'm trying to look through my notes because in that conference, they even told the kids, I'm trying to find out which speaker it was, told the kids that masturbation somehow stopped cancer.
I've been knee deep in this stuff for the last 2 years. It is just, it is evil what they're doing to brainwash these kids. In fact, when I speak on the House floor about this, and very graphic, this is what they're going to teach 1st graders. This is what they're going to teach 2nd graders. Planned Parenthood is doing this. Anal sex, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Not one person from the majority, the Democrat majority, will stand up and say, you're actually incorrect. They don't do that. They do this or that. They don't say a word. They view it as if you do not teach this behavior to the young children, you are engaging in discrimination. That is how far down the rabbit hole we have traveled.
Right, absolutely. Go ahead, Kyle.
There were 2 ironies in Clark County as when we covered that story. The first one was that when the administrators wanted to show the curriculum to the school board, they actually had to disconnect the filter on their computer system so they could show the content. And parents were saying, why do you have to take off the filter the porn filter or whatever it was, so we can show this. I mean, isn't that a good example that maybe we should be a little cautious about this? And the other point was when parents were speaking to the school board about this, one of the parents said, you know, the irony here is that if the teacher was standing out on the sidewalk using these terms and talking to children like this, they'd be arrested. But because they're 20 feet over in the classroom, somehow we think it's okay.
Kyle, you just hit on it right there, because the excuse that Nate Munson, who I think is with Safe Schools, one of the large promoters behind this conference, here's the telling fact. When KCCI News, the local affiliate CBS, went to them and said, we have students coming forward and saying they went to this conference learning how to support their gay friends, and instead were so grossed out and horrified at the graphic content that they left. Never does Nate in that video say, oh, that's not true. He says, these are good questions that need to be asked. These students need a safe place to ask this. So that tells you right there, he's not denying it. Now that legislators are picking it up and questioning and wanting to know exactly what was said, he's denying it in emails with legislators and saying that these things never happened and your reports are wrong, and if you're not careful, we'll sue you for slander. Now they have videotapes they haven't released. Why wouldn't they just release the videotapes?
Right. And that's the thing. That is where they are so vulnerable with this, is because they're so secretive about it. You know, the representative talked about having to sue just to get the questions. He doesn't want, you know, individual student answers or those sorts of things. He just wants the questions. And the fact that the university, and it's a public university, correct?
Yes.
The fact that a public university would not just release the questions is shocking. And you know, when we're talking about tax dollars being used and what's being taught to children and those sorts of things, why are these organizations so secretive? Why wouldn't they invite parents in, or the media, and not to be disruptive or those sorts of things, but allow them to observe and watch what's going on? And air these videos so parents can actually see what's going on. They don't do that because they know everyone would be shocked and they would demand an immediate end to it.
And the unfortunate thing is, in our conference, apparently the media was there in total support. And I won't say which affiliate because I'm seeing both of them there listed. So I won't say which one it was until I get clarification as to one or the other. Bob, go ahead.
I want to offer some encouragement to my fellow legislators across the country.
Please do.
Anybody who's over 40 finds this stuff odd. At least most people do. And those are the parents. Those are the ones who own homes. Those are the ones who own the school system. The parents own it. I don't own it. And I got to tell you, my first election I won 3 years ago, on my second life here in politics, I won by 150 votes. This last one, I won by over 1,000 votes, which is a relatively small area. But I went from a less than 1% victory to a 20% victory. And it was talking about this stuff. And I will get stopped in the Sam's Club or Costco by complete strangers who tell me, thank you. Thank you so much. What you're doing, I can't believe they're teaching our kids this. I mean, this is remarkable because, you know, I'm a Caucasian. I'm what they call a haole out here. My wife is a local girl. She's a Samoan girl.
Okay.
And so the districts kind of are broken up to represent the various ethnic groups. Chinatown, you usually have a Chinese fellow there. East Honolulu, Caucasian. There's Filipino communities, et cetera, et cetera. Mine is a mixed community, so I don't have an inherent advantage. But I get stopped everywhere by people, and they thank me. And this is remarkable. It has never happened before because you're protecting their kids.
Right. Right.
And the only ones who disagree with us are the ones down at the university, the lefties, and they don't have kids, and they're, you know, and so they call you names, by the way, as I'm probably sure.
I've learned.
Such foul and filthy things I've never seen before. My kids won't even Google my name on the internet because they say they get so mad.
Right. My Twitter account lights up. What greets me every morning are new and descriptive terms.
Yeah. But, Tamara, I'm going to email you the complete report we just did recently on the forced acceptance of unhealthy behaviors. Take a look at it. In about 2 weeks, we're coming out with another report just detailing this menu of inaccurate programs. Like I said, they have an anatomy chart and they point to the anus and they say reproductive organ. I mean, you stick to that stuff, it's laughably bad.
Yeah.
And we can win on the medical facts.
Right.
Why aren't you telling the kids the risks?
Yeah,
right.
we would like to see that too, and please. And
yeah, absolutely.
And I think one of the other very serious points here too is that what this is doing is, because schools are being so aggressive at broaching these subjects at 5, 6, 7 years old, is it's putting parents in this very awkward position where a school is once again taking away power from parents, or they're forcing the parents to broach these subjects with their child at very young ages when they don't want to do that, because it's, as the representative said, it's not appropriate. It's not age appropriate. And yet the school is doing that to both the student and the parent. And I think it's shameful. And he's right. I think, what needs to continue to happen is parents do have power in these situations. And we need to remember, as taxpayers, we control the system. We fund the system. We own it. And, as in our work, focusing on teachers' unions and school spending and all of those sorts of issues, we run into this all the time, where we have unions that treat us and others like it's their system. And, how dare you, as this unwashed rube parent who is just merely paying the bills, have anything to do with what should actually go on. But parents need to remember they are the ones in charge, and they need to exercise that power.
Kyle, you've just mentioned something that I think most of us have forgotten just all along. Parents are in charge. Parents are responsible. Parents have control. We're seeing this with the Common Core battle. You have the right to opt your children out. You have the right to choose where or how they're educated. You have the right to choose which curriculum you want in front of them. Bob, I didn't mean to step in front of you. Go ahead.
No, the two prongs of attack or defense we have is, one, medically accurate. That's medically accurate requires precision. So that is indisputable. Although they try and define the anus as a genital, it is not. And so that is the strongest argument we have. The second is the age appropriate. But that is a rather nebulous and moving target. For example, when we had them review Pono choices, they convened a blue ribbon committee. On that committee, the lone medical professional was an openly homosexual activist pediatrician. And he is the one who's, saying, well, the anus could be a genital. And other doctors that I talked to were laughing at him. And they put, to determine age appropriateness for the Pono Choices program, a transgender individual on the committee. Now, here's someone who suffers from a mental illness. My prayers go out to that individual. But they're going to determine what's appropriate for my 5 or 6-year-old or 11-year-old, this person who's suffering in the midst of a debilitating disorder? You got to be kidding me. And then they put the rest of the usual suspects on there, hacks and lackeys. And so, I thought we would get nothing out of it. We did get something out of it, but the deck is stacked against us. Teachers don't want it. That's what I've seen. But the people pushing it is the PhD assistant bureaucrat stuffed away in the Department of Education somewhere who's a lefty and wants to have this stuff in front of kids. They nod their head. Planned Parenthood comes in. Yeah. This is great. This is great stuff. And that's who we're fighting, at least here anyway.
So, and you mentioned earlier that they don't teach the miracle of life. It's not permitted. That's absolutely true. So we're not really even teaching reproductive health. And when we hear the terms reproductive health, even in the political realm, it always comes back to, rather than
abortion.
It always comes back. Reproductive rights for women is code word for right to kill.
Wait, the one program we reviewed, Glioblast, fetus, fallopian tubes, gestation. We did a word count. Those words appeared 0 times. Anal or anus appeared 37 times.
Seriously.
Yes. They skip the miracle of life. All they tell you is, if you're a young girl, if you give birth, it's going to be very expensive. You have to buy a baby carriage. You're going to have to do this. You're going to have to do that. And if you have to have a cesarean section, it's going to be another $5,000. It's a real drag and negative. And so they don't teach the kids the miracle of life, and they cannot put any value on a pregnancy. Even if it's unplanned, unintended, inconvenient, they can't put any value on it because they're in the business of terminating those. Mm-hmm. Planned Parenthood.
We have got to take a break. Again, we want to give our sponsors their due. They're a brave group to come in and sponsor us with, all the things we have to talk about here. We'll be right back after these messages, and we'll finish this conversation. But I appreciate what Representative McDermott said in giving you hope, and I want to touch on that and exactly what kind of a makeup he's in the House when we come back. Kyle Olson is my guest from EAG News, and Bob McDermott from Hawaii, the legislature, House District 40.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can give these grandkids back if you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We can help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hey. Psst. Let me let you in on a little secret. You ready? Always try to do business with people, not places. Especially if you seek honest Christian business people. And when it comes to my car, I really need to trust who's working on it. Now, my family is so blessed. A few years ago, we found a family-owned automobile repair shop that operates as a Christian business also. Open, honest, reliable, trustworthy. It's AMCO on Hickman Road in front of Kmart, and it's a family-owned Christian operating business. This family treats your car as if it was their car. Everything from oil changes to transmission repair and everything in between. So the next time you feel the need to be at peace with your choice of who you can trust with your car, give AMCO on Hickman a chance to serve you. And tell them Max sent you.
Thanks for staying tuned. I am Tamara Scott. I'm talking with Kyle Olson from Education Action Group, eagnews.org, and Bob McDermott from Hawaii, House District 40. And Bob, you had brought up the fact that the CDC had taken it off their website, just how incredibly unhealthy anal sex was. I actually have a book, green in color, and it says condemnation, not condemnation the word, condom-nation. And in it, it discusses the risks and how the CDC actually called off a study using condoms in anal sex because it was so unhealthy that condoms kept breaking, and there were obviously risks to those participating in the study that they just could not condone for this to go on. So that's in the book that I have now loaned to a state legislator because we're dealing not only with this conference but also with the anti-bullying bill in our state legislature, which is, as you heard me talking earlier, a very anti-family, anti-constitutional bill. But Bob, I want to talk condemnation. We'll see if we can get you a copy of that book. If it's still out there, you can still get it. But you are in a not really very friendly environment. And I love the fact that you say you won with 1% victory, but now last election you won with 20% victory because people appreciate the truth, the fact that you care about their kids. But give us the overall makeup of the House as far as Republicans, Democrats.
State House of Representatives in Hawaii, we have 51 members and 7 Republicans. I'm one of the 7. And the state Senate, we have 25 senators and 1 Republican. So it's quite lopsided. And I was there in the 90s when we had 19 Republicans. So we can get higher numbers, but it always comes down to the candidates, right? And but the point is, you can have an impact and an influence on policy, even if you don't have a committee chairmanship, if you're not in a majority. I mean, that's the easy way to do it. The hard way to do it is to find an issue like this and work it. One of the other things about these programs that there's no mention of anywhere is the emotional upheaval of young people engaging in sexual behavior.
Thank you.
You know, 14, 15-year-old girls, and girls are the victims. Sex is sexist. Let's make no mistake about it. And girls have a nesting instinct. It's biochemistry. It's not, you know, it's not up for debate. They form attachments. And the more they break those attachments, the less likely they are going to be able to hold a long-term relationship together. However, the heartbreak of a 15-year-old girl who has a relationship with a boy for 6 months and then they break up, that's devastating. And nowhere is that, and it is for a young boy too, but much more so for a young lady, and that is nowhere is that stuff mentioned in the Planned Parenthood curriculum, because Planned Parenthood programs, and that's who's, as our friend said, that's who's writing these things now. That's a moneymaker for them, and they want to encourage sexual activity. In fact, the Department of Health and Human Services did a study on the comprehensive sex ed programs and found that they're virtually useless. Only one of them shows any reduction in sexual activity, and that was among people who were already sexually active. All they did was use condoms more. They didn't even measure pregnancy outcomes in several of these because the programs just didn't do it. Abstinence-based, which we get ridiculed for, also known as strategic risk avoidance, does teach about contraception, but it stresses abstinence and has a character-building component. That is really comprehensive. It tells your children of the risks of HIV, the risks of oral sex. If you're a person who has oral sex, a young lady with 5 or more partners, you have a 250% risk of getting oral cancer, greater risk of getting oral cancer. You will never find that statistic in any Planned Parenthood program, never. And even if your partner has a condom, because if the young lady's tongue slips, touches someplace that's not covered by the latex, she ingests the bacteria. By the way, we have bills here that outlaw latex being used in hospitals, but by God, it's the end-all, be-all for sexual activity.
Interesting. Kyle, I want to make sure you come in. And gentlemen, I'll just tell you, we have about 17 minutes left in the program. So I want to make sure you get everything in that you want to say. So Kyle, I don't want to leave you out.
No, I guess I would just say, you know, these sorts of examples are going on all over the country. And schools are doing their best to just kind of, you know, slip it under the radar. I mean, we had a story about Chicago public schools that were teaching about anal sex and those sorts of things to elementary kids. And so I don't want parents to be left with the impression that this is just Hawaii and it's not elsewhere around the country. These sorts of this culture war, this battle is happening all over the country. And it's happening, you know, right in your school district where you live as well.
Anal sex to elementary kids, just the exploration that kids hear what they, you know, they try what they've learned. It's just what we're doing to these kids is just phenomenal. Bob, I could tell you were coming in. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's criminal. I think Kyle can attest to this as a man. You tell 14-year-old boys, 13-year-old boys, 15-year-old boys that anal sex is the healthy, wholesome, moral equivalent of male-female reproduction, and you tell those girls that. When they get in the backseat of the car and they start necking, and the girl says, I don't want to get pregnant, I don't want to, they've been drinking, they don't have a condom, the boy says, well, turn around, let me try it from behind. Guaranteed, you're going to get more of that behavior. There's no question, because young men, I hate to say it, are almost like dogs in that aspect. They will put their ding-dong in anything just to get some satisfaction. And the young girls are going to be victimized. And they ignore it as if it's not a real thing. They ignore it. Planned Parenthood does, and the educational professionals. Oh, you're nonsense. Yeah, you're going to see more of this behavior because these programs have been around and they're inculcating kids to try it more. They won't practice it, but they will try it. And the young girls, again, are the losers because they're on the receiving end. And it's painful, and they can get injured, and they can get diseases at a much higher rate.
I just can't believe we're having to have this discussion. I've never in my life thought we'd ever have this discussion. Kyle, at the presidential realm, here we are, Iowa, first in the nation. You, is it Wisconsin or Michigan that you are in? Michigan. What do you think? Is this an issue? Or should we be asking our candidates what their thought is on education?
Well, see, and we've talked about this before. See, the inherent problem here is that many, I would assume most conservatives believe that these are family and certainly local issues. And what is the role of a president when it comes to education policy or sex ed or those sorts of things? And so we're torn about that. So on the one hand, I say, well, this really should be left up to parents and local communities to decide this. On the other hand, a parent or a president has the moral authority to say this is the direction that America should be going, as I believe as an individual, as the elected president. But ultimately parents and local communities need to sort this sort of thing out. Now, what we have seen is that the president, in his most recent budget, has again tried to take money away from abstinence-based sex education, and he is funding this comprehensive sex ed. Now, the Republicans are trying to at least have some sort of funding parity, which I suppose is a step in the right direction. But again, the fundamental question, we're dealing today with the fundamental question, and that is what is appropriate for these very young children. And I don't see, well, and think back to, I think it was 2007 or 2008, when the president said that he believed that sex ed should be taught to kindergartners. And John McCain at the time brought that up, and he was just ridiculed as, as Representative McDermott, the word he said, as a fuddy-duddy that, doesn't want kids to be safe and healthy and all of those buzzwords. And yet this is the sort of policy that's coming directly out of the Obama administration, and states are adopting it.
Parents, you are the ultimate authority. You are the guardian. You are the advocate for your child. You have the ability to say what they see and what they don't. And at some point, you may have to decide what is more important, a second income in the home or someone staying home and home educating those kids or finding another source to educate those kids. I even wonder, gentlemen, if we need to have a class action lawsuit. If someone sold TVs that were supposed to have this many channels and they didn't, there would be a lawsuit. And yet here we are deprogramming our children or programming them in very unhealthy manners. I think there's room for a class action lawsuit. We have only just a minute left.
Tamara, we're going to file a lawsuit. I am on the McDermott Report 4. It hasn't been released yet. All the medical inaccuracies. Great. Because the law requires medical accuracy. The second thing, so I'm going to send you guys email offline with some of our information. Our website is ohanapolicygroup.com. That's Ohana, OHANA, ohanapolicygroup.com, and all our reports are listed there. Very quickly, the way we succeed is being blunt and go straight to the issue. You're teaching kids anal sex. I've debated Planned Parenthood and pediatricians on TV, and that's on the website. And I kept going back to that, and boy, they get flustered because that is the issue, and they can't deal with it.
It's so disgusting they can't defend it because you're dealing with feces and everything else that is a health risk in any other world. Kyle, in closing, quickly.
Well, like you said, parents have the power, and parents need to exercise that power. And so they need to dig into these issues. They need to know what their children are learning. how schools are changing policy to shift away from abstinence and towards comprehensive sex ed. And when they're not getting answers, when they're getting the runaround, or they're saying, well, that's private information or whatever, that means they're onto something and they need to continue digging. And so I'd encourage parents to reach out to you, to reach out to EAG News, to reach out to Representative McDermott. But parents have power and they need to exercise it.
Very good. And I'm going to share something with both of you after we go off air that everybody's in my resolution committee is going to think I had told you about before the show, and I have not. I promise him I have not, but it fits our conversation. I will share it later. You've heard the news out there, folks. What you do with it, your inaction, you're responsible for. You have the ability to do change and make change with the information you've been given. And I would just say to you, these are your children. They are the only treasures you can take to heaven with you after we leave this earth. I wouldn't let anybody take that from you here on earth. So be encouraged and never be complacent.